I was not born yet, but was it Jimmy Hoffa's prison cell? There was some gangster, and they were gonna open his cell, and Geraldo opened it in, like, the '80s, and
I think it was Jimmy Hoffa,
it
or
was. It
is
was
that
Jimmy Hoffa, and they
yeah,
opened it,
Jimmy
and there was,
Hoffa.
like, nothing in there.
Nothing there.
Yeah. So that won't be what this is, but there was a lot of build up
No.
to that. I'd be like,
Yeah, yeah, there
that's pretty
was.
interesting.
Yeah, that was great having Dr. Natalie on. Um,
She's always
Very cool.
insightful.
It's oh, yeah, she's, like, really, really smart, sharp. I think it's cool she's going into, the study of envy. I think that's very fascinating
Yeah.
to
Well,
get
in
into.
American Psycho, which is a movie we should talk about, I'll throw that under our list.
Yes,
The
yes,
main character is very narcissistic and antisocial. So he has this
yes,
psychopathy streak. And one of the opening scenes, the men are it's basically a peeing contest or a blank measuring contest with their business cards. They're putting them out there and comparing the quality.
right,
And you get the internal
right,
monologue from Christian Bale of, oh, he's got the
yes,
perfect off-white coloring. Oh my god, and he's, like, sickened by how he feels he's been outdone by a business card, and the
yes,
the envy dripping off
right,
of him and his perfect scowl is just a magnificent study in this sort of masculinity contest of, snakes in suits. Um, that's all there's a book called that, and it's about psychopathy, but basically, like, it
mm,
gets transferred to the boardroom, right? And so it just
yeah,
becomes and what's
yeah,
funny is you don't know if everyone else there is they're taking it seriously, but you get the
yeah.
protagonist's dialogue of how dire this is that he feels his card has been outdone because he put so much stock
Right.
into it. Card stock, I guess,
Oh,
pun intended.
I think it could, the subject we could really expound upon further, the notion of, not no, differing with, Dr. Natalie, since she, is studying this extensively, but I wonder if envy has a feminine or alternatively masculine flavor, depending on, how it's looked at. And American Psycho is a great example you give that. So with males, envy would be how much do you have, literally. And it doesn't have to be, brought down to, some, level of, uh, the profane, but,
Right.
how much do you have, like, in income or wealth or something that is measurable? How much do you have? But I wonder if, much like, uh, Deborah Tannen, who's studied, you know, toddlers, females and male toddlers, on the kindergarten playground, where she talks about how the worst thing that a girl could do to another little girl is exclusion or banishment. So I wonder
Right.
if there's a feminine envy of exclusion, of belonging. I wish I had
Yes.
more belonging. I wish I had more followers. It's not more money. It's more inclusion, more belonging. Am I in the group? Whereas males, it's more like, how much do you have compared to how much do I have? So
Yeah,
to be
you've made
continued, I guess.
no, you've really, sparked my mind here, and so I'm a bit now on my own tangent of the movie Bridesmaids, and I need to refresh myself more on it, but
Oh,
essentially,
yes.
um, there's a moment where the the lead character is played by, Kristen Wiig, and
Right.
yeah, she experiences a lot of social and financial struggles in the early parts of the movie, and she's disinvited from being the maid of honor, and her
Right.
replacement is like a woman who seems to have a lot figured out, has it all like it's perfectly poised and always
Yes.
together. And
Yes.
so she is disinvited and excluded. And that's the main thrust of
Right.
the movie, in fact, is her getting her life together and choosing the guy that's right for her instead of the guy who seems to be
Yeah.
the good pick, who is actually verbally either abusive or basically doesn't care if she's there or not. She's kind of the toy to him, played by
Huh.
John Hamm. John Hamm plays a heel in this movie pretty well,
Oh,
actually.
all
Yeah.
right.
So it's actually, to your point, the disinvitation from your fellow bridesmaids. I mean, what better symbolic depiction of adult female exclusion can you have?
Yes. Yes. I mean, yeah, that's the ultimate right there, being in the modern day. I mean, if we go back to hunter gatherer times, then it gets very raw and real to say that females excluded from the tribe would die for sure. They
Right.
would
It does
absolutely
go
die.
back to that.
Right. And that's why I think of envy as deadly. I that's why I see it as a reptilian brained, not mammalian brained, like jealousy. And I see jealousy as being male, female, doesn't matter. We all have it. It means I want what you have. See, I would like to have what you have. But envy is deeper. It's murderous. It's actually murderous. It's aggressive and murderous. Some of what I've read about it in the psychoanalytic literature says it's wishing the death of that person envied. It's
Mm.
wishing they didn't exist. It's not wishing you had what they possess. That's jealousy. It's wishing they cease to exist.
Because there's such a threat to your identity or such a reminder of what you don't have. Okay.
Yeah, like you could, if you're an envious person and you acquired all the possessions of the person you are envious of, you still won't feel satisfied.
Mm.
You want to replace them. And that's what makes it, I think what makes envy deeper than just jealousy, and also deeper in the structure of mind, if you will, the reptilian level, the instinctual level. And if something gets to an instinctual level, then it automatically also becomes a biological sex aspect.
Well, you're making me think of
Reptilian
how with
means reptilian means, there's masculine and feminine. And then there's survival,
right.
which are shared between both sexes. But the sexes exist at the reptilian level, the instinctual level.
Well,
So
you're
there's got
making
to be,
me
if envy is at that level, there's got to be male envy as differentiated from female envy.
it'll be interesting to see where your research on that goes. I mean, I think it brings us back to narcissism with you constantly have to inhabit that perfect role. So Nancy McWilliams, who's the great psychoanalyst of our day, one of them, uh, wrote an entire article about how people with clinical level narcissism can't say two phrases, and it's "thank you" and "I'm sorry." So people with
Yes.
narcissistic personality disorder are very dependent on being perceived as perfect. So you could say on a Freudian level, they really didn't internalize that that comfort, that ability to see themselves as worthwhile without performing. And there's a difference there. It doesn't mean that if you're a developed male, you won't want to provide and keep getting better. That's completely not what it means. But it means if there's a
Yeah.
small setback or perceived slight, you totally lose your self-esteem and efficacy. It's like a cup with no bottom. So the water just goes right through. You have to keep the water flow of constant gratification going, of supply, or when it ends, your shell. And so that's very angering.
Yes.
And so the desire, the envious desire to just be the other person is like, I don't want to be a shell. I want what you have. I want to be you, because even if I had what you have, I'm still me. Your talk made me think of that. Like, yeah,
Mm,
that kind of checks out with character disorders, because you're not satisfied. There's something in your worldview that takes away from endogenous, so internal self-soothing and gratification, where it could only be externally ingested. And as we know, we as human beings can't constantly get that level of peak experience. No matter what people try to sell us or tell us, we have to be able to say, okay, that was an off presentation. I'm going to do better next time, for example.
yeah. 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 Very good. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, there's I think more to come on that subject of envy. And
Oh, yeah.
wow, did we had a lot of people here tonight. And I never got to go back to Geraldine and tell Natalie that Natalie used the word crone to describe a wise elder female, of a village
Yeah.
who could bestow wisdom on the youth. And Geraldine has always called herself a crone proudly,
Mm.
that she's a wise elder woman with knowledge
Well, she
of
could go
having
watch
lived
Mad Max Fury Road and see
interesting
that there's
life.
a tribe of women, yeah, in their 50s or
Right,
60s, or however, and they're on motorcycles, and they're like the
right,
vanguard. They protect
right.
the other women, and that's a serious thing. And so you can get archetypal with it and say, like, the protective grandmotherly figure is very important. And it's interesting, isn't it interesting how post-apocalyptic movies usually go back to these very important roles that now we're seeing
Yes.
people say, oh, is inessential. It's like, oh, when rebuilding a
Oh,
society,
right,
though,
right, right. Yeah, post-apocalyptic
it's a good
anything
genre.
stories, yeah, are going to need crones, wise older women, and we'll need males. We'll still need males and fathers. Back to Father's Day. There we go. We
I
went
still
all over
think
the place on the
uh,
subject.
I still think that one of the issues is that fathers being associated with coach and with rough and tumble play and with saying it's
Yeah,
okay to try to do better. You're not perfect yet. I don't know that message
yeah.
is that popular always, man. It's like the therapist who tells you that you need to change a little bit and it's not everybody else's fault. It's a tough pill to swallow.
Right, right. You're saying just Father's Day in general, or fathers
No, I'm
as a
saying fathers
topic?
in general, because on the whole subject of psychology of fatherhood, I think the psychology of it is, well, and we didn't get to this with Natalie, but we know that fatherlessness correlates with negative outcomes. It
Yes, with
correlates with riskier
criminality.
decisions in teens. Yeah. So,
Yeah, and criminality.
yeah. No, absolutely. So essentially, I mean, I've heard it explained, and I don't think it's a perfect one-to-one thing, as you always give a disclaimer, that the bell curve, but like mothers are often really great with younger kids, and fathers are often great when they start to kind of buck up, and
Teens.
yeah, teens,
Yeah,
adolescents, when
yeah.
you need to have more of a disciplinarian role or have more of that coaching element. And I don't see
Yes,
that there's something wrong with that, especially if it describes a lot of uh experience um for people out there. I just so when motherhood goes wrong, it's catastrophic because you don't internalize that nurturing or protection. And when fatherhood goes wrong,
yes.
it's also catastrophic. But if you have that, I was working on a kind of a hypothesis while you were talking, and I put some of it out there in
Yeah,
Substack. So I
yeah.
think from an evolutionary perspective, you know, as a kid that you have to love your parents. We already know kids will always take everything as their fault because they're egocentric. But I think as they grow up,
Right.
it's actually easier to cast some stuff as your dad's fault, because if your mother was the more nurturing person, which she often is, you'll want to keep that image inside even through her faults. But if the father, it's easy to say, because he might not have been as nurturing, like, oh, there's something wrong with him, or my dad just doesn't get me, or dad this and dad that. It's less risky to the
Yeah.
psyche to hate on your dad, probably.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wonder if that there's something behind, what I was saying about the course that we took about parenting.
Yes.
What I didn't say when Ellie was still here is it was pretty much a course on how to be a single mom.
Oh
That
man.
that that's what it was a course about. Yeah, and they couched it in saying, "Well, we have to accommodate everybody. Anybody who could show up to this course, we have to accommodate," but it shouldn't have been called a parenting course. It really wasn't. It was how
Yeah,
to be
that
a
is
single mom.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, the psychology of fatherhood. I mean, it's look at the look at Star Wars, look at so many different films about when it goes wrong, and then look at
Yeah,
instances where, um, I mean, it can go right. It's a subject. It really gets to. I think fathers also have a huge role in, um, give it in that in initiative phase of of the play. Like, can you win something? Can you conquer something? What does that look like? That industry versus inferiority. I mean, and that's from 5 to 13 years old. So that kind of maps onto when dad may be more of a presence, right? You hear a lot of people talk about their
yeah.
father not believing in them academically or job wise. Whereas the mom, if she doesn't love you, it might be just because you're worthless completely. But if a father doesn't, well, there's usually a contingent on fatherly love of, oh, he didn't believe I was capable of anything. Isn't that interesting?
Right, right, right. Yeah, you we should probably, end soon here. It's been,
I
2
agree.
hours, but, you're
Totally.
amazing. Always amazing, to talk to both you and Natalie.
Thank
But
you.
the image you gave me right there, um, wrapping this up, the ultimate father or father vibe or what you would want in a father or what you would wanna be as a father, wrapped into being married, having a spouse, a wife, and being a father. You made me think of um, Harrison Ford as Han Solo about to be encased in carbonite, and Princess Leia goes, "I love you," and he made up this line. I know.
Yes, exactly.
I mean that kind of. I mean that's a sacrifice. He's being literally sacrificed. Um, by the Empire and all that.
Well, yeah, but right before we close, I'll add in the sequel trilogy, he's killed by his own son, Kylo Ren, and he comes back as a force ghost to say, like, to give some parental fatherly wisdom. My gosh, I'm so glad you brought up Star Wars. That's a powerful moment. I mean, if you think about it, we could get Jungian. Let's go briefly to your
Yeah.
territory and say, well, he kind of killed the his father's legacy. He said, "I need to strike out on my own." So he killed his father. In the movie, really he did, but symbolically, it's like, okay, so I'm no longer listening to you. You're dead to me. I need my own legacy. And then later, he comes to the realization, oh, my dad had wisdom. He had some wisdom, and I need to draw from that. You could really make that metaphorical and say when someone writes off their dad because he wasn't great entirely, like, but then comes to realize some lessons he taught them. It's a very interesting analysis. Very, very applicable, I think, to our talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
All
great.
right.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for joining me on my 10th Father's Day.
Thank you, Dr. Paul. Thank you for being a
All
mentor to
right.
Substack and myself. I've really enjoyed our work. I think it's a great
Thank you.
episode.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining.